Hello, this is a LASS walkthrough. LASS has been out for years. LASS 2.5 came out this year. It's a real beast of a string library, and a lot of people say, oh, it's so complicated to set up and use. And I say, well, yeah, it's pretty complicated to set up. I'll give you that. It's quite logical once you get your head around it. In use, it's brilliant. It's because you set it up exactly how you want to work. It's just wonderful in use, I find. So before I go into the actual mechanics of setting it up, here's how I use it, first of all. And I look here on this part of the keyboard, excuse me, where I've got the controllers that I use. These are controlled by a little Avid Artist that I've got, which has a name display, so I can see all these on my control. Got mod wheel, vibrato, portamento speed, that is, CC11, I don't know what that is, I don't think I use that. CC11 expression, auto arranger, on off legato, and sustain pedal. So this is basic monophonic legato. This is the Batman profile, which I'm using these days. So if I turn legato off, I'll get that familiar 16 strings playing each note equals 48 notes if you're playing a triad. Yeah, that's okay, but it's not super realistic. Then you turn on the auto arranger and turn off, sorry, that's legato on, that mode. And suddenly I just find it wonderful for playing really soft. Really soft parts. So just to compare that with without the auto arranger, which splits these parts into small sections. Here I'm still tiny on the mod wheel, but it just has that slightly big, unconvincing sound. So you put the auto arranger on, splitting it into these 4 violins, 8 violins, rather than 16 plus 16 plus 16. And so that's how I have the basic thing set up. I've got a bunch of key switches. This is Sordino. Really lovely down here as well. This is Sordino, and then I've got, this is a long, so I've got trems, trills. I've now got, let's turn the auto arranger off from the legato. There you go. And harmonics. And that's all I'm along. So that's how I've got mine set up. And I just find it really easy to use and playable in practice. I know exactly where I am. The legatos, let's just go back to the mono again. I just find it very smooth. There's no weird artifacts in there. And I'll talk you through, I've got the reverbs and all that stuff set up in the fullness of time. But that's basically my default string thing. And so often I'm using other libraries, and if there's a bump here or something there and I just can't be bothered to sort it out, I'll just go, oh, forget it, go back to LASS, because it's so smooth in use. One other thing quickly before I show you how you set it up. I've got a bunch of, this is one of their multis, Batman Cries. In general, keep that CC1 low with LASS. You don't need to go too high on it. So that's a lot of first chairs in there to get that sort of slightly more weepy sound. This is all first chairs. It's much more close, intimate sound, isn't it? Soaring lead is just monophonic octaves doubled, first and second violins. And having it in the template, when you're writing quickly, it's just, right, I want a quick lead line, boom, it's there. I don't have to fiddle around, because fiddling around with the Avid Artist with all the auto-arrange settings, it's not hard, but if you just want instant, I've got a few things there that I can go to. Okay, so I've rejigged the screen here so you can see what's going on. All of LASS is I host in VE Pro, which, if you've never met it before, it was sort of primarily so that I think you could use it remotely. You could use or post all your samples on another computer, and your DAW, you would send out a MIDI channel, it would go to your other computer, and this thing, the VE Pro, would host it. But a lot of us found that it was really useful, even if you're only using one machine, as I am. All of LASS is held in this thing because it gives you all sorts of benefits. You can load up your template at the start of the day. You don't have to keep saving massive projects. It just stays in its own RAM. It's very quick. It's very good on resources. It's the way it hosts VSTs. It's very efficient. So here is the mighty Arc, which you will have met if you've known it or heard so much about. This is an articulation controller. It stands for remote controller, I suppose. And what this does is it controls all the hundreds of different patches that are there, because in LASS, I need to get to LASS, don't I? Where are we? LASS. In LASS, you've got, oh, this is LASS Sordino, legato sustains. You've got all these different patches. Look here, bass. Bass is A, B, and C for the 3 Divisi sections. I think 2 of them are 4 players, 1 of them is 8 players. You've got the first chair, so that's legato sustain. You've got, oh, this is all legato sustain. Cello, violas, violins 1 and 2. And if I go up here, basso pizzicato, harmonics, ensemble patches, tremolos, trills, each of which contain these gazillions of patches. So managing that lot is a nightmare, hence the Arc. It's there to actually make things easier, although you may look at it the first time and go, it's okay, don't be afraid of the Arc, it's all logical. And this thing sits here talking to all your different instances, well, when you want it to. It doesn't do it all the time by default. You just tell it when you want to control stuff, and it tweaks all the settings. So the first thing you do, well, let's, where am I here? Let's just get rid of the Arc a moment. Here's what I've got loaded up. Now, there's only 8 patches here. Legato, sustain, spiccato in this one. And the reason why I've done it like that is that, unlike almost everything else you use with Contact, the Arc can talk to 64 instruments at the same time. You see these here? Normally you don't even look at them or touch them. You do with LASS, because I've got 8 loaded here. On 17 to 32, I now have another 16 legato tremolos here. 33 to 34, I've got a few more here. And 40, I think I'll put my first chairs there. Separate first chairs. Because I have first chairs combined with sections and also on their own. And that's all in this one instance of Contact. And so that's way more than you normally get. And so the first thing you have to do, really, with the Arc, which controls all this stuff, is it has to know what you've put where. It can't automatically know where things are. So the first stage is really pretty simple, is that you have to tell it what you've put. So I had violin 1, you can say here, so it's violin 2, or violin 1, or whatever. First chair, A, B, C, whatever it is. This is first chair, legato, sordino. What patch is it? It's just a standard legato. So you see you've got these drop-down menus. It's pretty quick to just tell it what you've put here. Note here, this is A, which relates to 1 to 16. If I go to B here, that's what I put here on 17 to 32. Just get that out of the way a moment. That's controlling all that lot. C there, D there. General tip with the Arc, put on a good CD, put on a good podcast or something, because there's, you're not even really listening to the sound with a lot of it. You're just setting up the basics. And so, just set yourself aside a day when there's not much going on to really get to grips with this. So there you go. Pretend I've done all that. Let's now go back out to the main screen. I think the next thing I'd do is I'd go to the key switch screen. And what that does is it just tells the ARC what different instruments you want to control as key switches, and you've got different sets of key switches here. Let's go to set A, which is my default longs, which is what I was playing in the first part of this demo. This thing here, C-1, tells you what the root note is. So this here is C-1 on a keyboard, which is off the bottom of an 88-octave keyboard. This is where I use my nano key. That relates to my bottommost nano key. I've not got legato on there. But that's playing that. And what you do, here we are, legato here. If I click this, I select what I want. So it's violin 1 first chair, wasn't it? Let's just remember what I've done. Yeah, it's violin 1 first chair, legato. And now I've clicked that, you see over here, I've got a load more that it says, okay, you've got, when you click that one, you'll be playing first chair legato. Also, I'll be playing A legato, B legato, C legato. So what is up with this? Let's get the things set up right. Oh, idiot, I'm on short. That's why I'm playing the wrong patch. So that's now playing first chair, A, B, and C. If I get this out of the way, switch it back to here. There they all go. First chair I've actually got turned down. Oh, you can't hear that. I've got that turned down in audio. But that's playing all of your patches. Get back to the ARC. And that's what you've set up here. So you just say, when I play that note, what do I want to sound? First chair, A, B, and C of any one given articulation. Here I'm onto the Sordinos, which comes out of the separate LASS LS library. And so I set that up. Channel 1, 2, 3. Here, oh yes, this is important, isn't it? If let's say I want to add one. I'll go here. This tells me, this is a list of everything I've set up. Suppose bizarrely I want to put the pizzicato on there as well. Pizzicato, that's just telling me that's what I've assigned to port B, channel 13. So if I go, this is B here, channel 13, hopefully I'll see violin 1 first chair pizzicato. Close that down so we can see. Got that one. Violin first chair pizzicato. Is it channel? Yes, it is 13. So that bit's handled sort of invisibly. If your eyes are glazing over already, I don't necessarily blame you, because I'm really bad at explaining stuff. But you see there, where I selected that, those parts are automatic. Whatever I put there, it knows, because you've told it in the setup what's there. And so that's how you just get that much going. How do I clear it down then? What if I don't want anything? There we go. Don't know that. And so that's now got rid of that. And you do that for all. I've got my Sordinos there, I've got my trems there, my trills there, my harmonics there, some effects patches down here. And that's what I do. And that is set to port A channel 9. So let's go back now, and hopefully some of my rationale is starting to come through. Because Cubase can only access these first 16, you've got to leave a little bit of space there. I've got 1 to 8 of something within LASS channel. There is no channel 9, although if I go into Cubase here, you will see it's sending on channel 9, and that's what the ARC's picking up here. ARC 1, channel 9. Channel 9. Anyone get that? No. And that plays the Sordinos on that key switch, please. So on. Well, one thing, the little criticism I've got is that this one, it just gives you what's in the first slot, and when you click on it, I would like to be able to see here straight away, and you kind of go, oh, I can't. Violin 1 first chair, trem. Where was it? Once you've clicked it again there, now I can see what's going on. So that is a little bit slightly, you can trip yourself up a little bit. What am I looking at here exactly? It's not completely obvious. So that's just a little gotcha that you've got to look out for. And then you set up all these, and then that's done. Then that's your key switch is done. You've got different sets here on channel 10. I've set up spiccatos. I've set up all my shorts here. Spiccato, staccato, pizzicato, and marcato. I've got set up on those keys. I try and keep these the same. It's just my little convention I use. Shortest to longest is the broadest thing that I have. I could almost set up less on one patch, actually. I might think about doing that when I rejig it. So it would be quite nice if I could. Well, having said that, I think the reason why I keep shorts separate is sometimes it's just nice to play short sprightly parts completely separate and then go into another. That's just the way my brain works, which is not how yours works. C is first chairs. I've just got solo strings down here. So that's now that's handling all the first chairs longs and the first chairs shorts. I think that's all I've got in this one. Yeah, that's what these different sets are. So that's that side of it. So now you've told the ARC what your instruments are in your setup page, where you've got stuff. Then you've shown the ARC where you want, how you want to control them. The next thing is what things sound like, really, and how playable you want it. And this is sort of, it mirrors the normal main instrument patch that you have. So I've got glissandos on really low velocities, ports on that and that there. What's kind of nice, if you change your transition point, you just click and then drag up and down. And you see that automatically goes with it up here. Saving you a job. I've gone down to 0. And what that's actually done is that's set the gliss from 0 to 0. So I kind of go, oh, no, I don't want that. I just want that 0 to 1. The very lowest one will have a glissando. So you can set that. Do you want to have the vibrato and non-vibrato option here? Do you want to use this built-in EQ? I'm saying no, and I'll show you when we come back to that. This is quite an important one. Chord detection on the auto arranger. Its default is set to 25. I find 50 better. It just means that you've got a little bit more latitude. Legato mode, is it on or off, and so on and so forth. Now, all I've done here, I haven't actually changed anything in LASS. This is a really important point, and I think this area is one way that people get really confused with the ARC. All I'm doing here is setting up how I want to use things. I haven't told the individual instruments anything at this point, because what you then do, see this? This is a very important arrow. This one hit very important arrow. That's why I'm saying it like that. Click there, and this is telling the ARC, what do you want to do now? You've set this stuff. What do you want to control? And it knows all I've got in this instance of the ARC is first violins. So if I had second violins and violas, I would have the option to select all those here. Do I want to just control first chairs? Do I want to control just the A divisi? And you see this is changing here. I'm on C here. If I go to A, B, these are all our slots. Remember our slots that control these up here. C. And it knows, because you've done it in the setup page, what is A divisi and what is B divisi in all these different slots. You sort of don't have to worry about that now because the ARC's taking care of it. You just click here. I want to select all my first violins and change the threshold of portamento or whatever it else is here. And then I just pressed transmit and it's done. If you click always, you can. So as you adjust this, it's now in real time telling everything else what's going on. I think that's a little bit dangerous because you might be, you're just mucking around, and I think I get confused doing that. So I'm like, right, I just want to set everything up how I want it. Anti-machine gun, all those settings, what the CC you want to control by, and then when you're ready to the first violins, or you can select all, so it transmits on all the slots. Doesn't really matter in this case, almost one and the same, because there's nothing else that isn't first violin. Then you transmit, so all your basic settings are now gone to those instruments. Don't forget, I can't emphasize this enough, this is what you do once, or tweak very once in a while. You're not doing any of this in day-to-day use. That's that, and then comes the fun bit. Finally, we can get on, and the art, you can do settings for the art, you can do auto arranger settings if you really start getting complicated. I'm not going to go into that here. I have done it, but I can't be bothered to go through that now, really. It's too complicated. I'm just looking at basic use at the moment. And the default settings for all that stuff generally works for me. It's only if you're building multis and trying to do something really clever that you need that. Your CC tables, if you want to get involved in that, which I don't. The EQ, it's all there and you can transmit all that stuff. I'm not using that because I've switched it off on the panels. This is stage and color. This is where you set up basically how you want it to sound, and you've got all these different presets. Now, the first thing is that I do is slightly different. You've got different parts of stage and color. You've got the stage, which is the panning, and I just find that mucks up the stage. I don't really get on with the stage side of it. The color is the tone, which is the really fun bit, I think. And the effects is the reverb or anything else that's put on there. Now, I don't use the effects part of these profiles. And the reason why is that if you have, 100 instances of instruments and dozens of instances of Kontakt, all using their own built-in reverbs, it starts to build up the resource use a lot. So, where am I? I go to my output here. What I've done is that normally, if you have the ARC, you'll find in these AUXs, I think it's these two. Well, no, it's 4, isn't it? You have all these different convolution reverbs and stuff, and I just get rid of them. I don't want to use that. It's just the way I work, because I'm going to set my own reverb for everything, which is far, far more efficient. So it's just a little tip to keep the resource use. I found it was starting to fall over otherwise if I was doing that. So I'm just changing the colour now. That's the actual tone of these instruments. So you do that, and now actually I will put this on always. I'll transmit just in case. So now as I change it, it's going through and transmitting all the different colour profiles, so that now let's just switch the legato back on. Let's just go to mono legato. So now you've got that tone, and once you set up, you see, you can go through your whole library and just say, you know what, I want a different sound. Let's go to Lost. You know what, that isn't transmitting always, is it? And through it goes. That's odd. Do you know what? I think the other reason I don't use always is I find it doesn't always work. So, do you know, just don't press that always button. There we are. Now I've done it manually. It's done it quite happily and quite quickly. Now I want to turn my auto arranger back on. I've actually got the same reverb, so the differences aren't as marked as they would be if you were doing theirs. That's a different timbre. Fellowship ring. Transmit. And what you can do, I'm going to risk putting always on, see what happens. You can change the amount of the colour versus the dry. So that's the raw lass sound. There's my reverb on it. And there is that harshness that everyone says lass is about. Or you can have, I didn't like the Sordinoizer. I can't remember what all these are. Transmit. a little edit later, because for some reason it slowed right down on there, and you don't just want to sit and watch a loading patch there. I'm getting rid of this always button. See the highlight, even the colour's not great. It does, I think it's a great idea. That's a much more aggressive kind of sound. Airy strings, that's nice. See, now I've turned always off. Zoom! Zoom! It goes. And that's one I've used in the past, actually. If you want a bit more air in there. In the end, though, Batman is the one I keep coming back to. Just the one I like at the moment. So there you go. That's how you set that up. You can just choose the colour you want. You set all the controls here so you can have a bit more dry or a bit less colour, or however you want it. But as I said, for me, I don't use the reverb. There's none enabled here. I've took them out, and that uses quite a lot of RAM as well as it using CPU. So that's how I do it. So that's all that. In VE Pro, here's my master faders here. I just combined all the first violins, all the second violins, all the violas, and that I just keep it really simple mixing wise because I can't be bothered with thousands and thousands of faders. Okay, another little edit later, because I've just rearranged everything to show you what's going on as far as the rest of my routing is concerned. Because I said I don't use the reverb in built into LASS. This one's really simple. I don't do everything this simply, but for LASS I just thought, you know what, it's all meant to be the same instrument, so I'm going to keep this incredibly simple. First violins come in on a fader here, the whole lot. There you are, job's a good one. And it's going to my reverb. So if I take all the reverbs down, that's the, I'm just monophonic legato at the moment. That's what's coming out of LASS. And here you have early reflections and tail. Early reflections, listen to what happens as I... It's pretty subtle, but it just takes some of that... Here's a turn up. That really blooms up the top. It has the effect of just sitting it a little bit back from the mics. It's a little bit like that. And then the tail is there. And I find with LASS, a little bit of ER, a little bit of tail. Sort of does me, really. Somewhere here. They're all aux sends in Cubase. If I drag this thing along... There we go. It's over here. ER and tail. Just this reverb, which I've tried, you know, I've demoed spaces and all of this stuff. And I've just had this for a few years. It's resource efficient. For the early reflections, there we are. I'm using one of LASS's. LASS comes bundled with some. That's the one I use on that. You know, I've been through, you know. I think all the discussion of reverb is somewhat overrated. And I'm using a Lexicon thing, which is something I've had for years. A Lexicon impulse response of a medium hall. And, you know, I could use any one of a number of things. And that comes in on those chains there. And that's it. Routing-wise, incredibly simple, really. And that's the other thing I suppose I should just show you. It's something I've set up with this template that I never use, so I might well rethink it. But if I want a bit more of the first chair as I play, there's the first chair, and I can just dial that into the mix. I seem to be playing everything in C minor. I don't really use it, because if I want first chair, I'll probably copy the part down and just play the first chair. So I might simplify things a little bit there. I think I was trying to be a bit too clever. Well, that's the basics. I'm sure I've probably bamboozled you more than before you started. Hopefully, you have picked up some rough idea of how the mighty art works, though, that might be of use to someone, somewhere. I don't know. It is quite logical, but you can tie yourself up in knots if you're not careful. That's why I say just allow a whole day to get your head round the different areas. But the basic logic is start by telling well, fill up all your instruments first, actually, before you even go near the Ark. Fill up all your slots of what you want to have in this big instance of contact. I've just got it's quite common to put first violins on one instance, second on another, violas on another, cellos on another, basses on another. So I have 5 instances in total, you can see down here, for the different instruments. So you load that up. Next job, go to the Ark, tell it what you've done. Next job, go to the key switches, tell it what you want on each key switch, and just you've got a drop-down menu here to do that. Tell it how you want your legato to behave, what if you want to use glissandos or portamentos. I didn't cover that, but that's been less since the word go. You can either stream from disk or load into RAM. Speed loads into RAM. Speedlight does tricks with disk. DFD streams with disk. So you set up all of that stuff. Press transmit on what you want. Staging colour, choose what thing you like the sound of, press transmit. Don't touch the always button as I did there, and then you won't get yourself tied up in knots. And as long as you're not doing anything fancy, that's kind of it. If you get involved in all of this malarkey, because, oi, look at all that. Sub rules. And that's advanced stuff. I have kind of worked through a lot of it, but I certainly don't enough to talk anyone else through it. But that'll do you for most of the basic stuff. I hope some of that was useful. If it wasn't, don't tell anyone that you've listened to this. That's all. All right, thanks, folks. That's less and how I use it. Bye.